Hey, what's up, everybody? Wow, I'm looking really yellow. That's all right. Lighting's a little weird today. Let me pull up the Instagram feed. Hey, what's up, Matthew? All right, we're on Instagram too. I was booted off of Instagram last week for posts getting taken down, censorship stuff, but my account restriction's been lifted, so that's good news. Adjust this here. All right, welcome, guys. I'm Johnathan Wyatt. I'm here to help you master your sexual energy so you can magnetize your ideal life. Let's see in the announcements. My Immortal Energy Art School is now open. This is a school where I teach energy cultivation practices in depth, a very systematic, in-depth system of energy cultivation practices. I teach Qigong, Neigong, meditation, Tai Chi, Xingyi, Bagua, really powerful energy practice I'm teaching in my new Immortal Energy Art School. On Instagram, there's a link in my bio for a free training in that. YouTube, check out my one of the last Qigong videos. Just go to immortalenergyarts.com and you'll get my free training from that. So something new there. So today I'm going to be talking about cultivating sexual energy and why that's a valuable thing for us, especially in this time. So sexual energy, it's one of the most powerful sources that we have to work with as humans. Sexual energy, it's not just about pleasure, right? That's one aspect of sex and sexual experience, but it's much more than that. You can create anything with sexual energy. Obviously, you can create a child, you can create a physical human being with sexual energy, but you can create anything you want, absolutely anything. You just have to know how to build some sexual energy and to harness it, to channel it properly. And this requires obviously having a deeper connection to your mind and your body, and of course your sexual nature, and being able to integrate that into all areas of your being. This is a holistic approach. Again, sexual kung fu is not just about, how can I have really pleasurable sex? And, that's part of it, sure, but like it's so much more than that. It's about integrating your sexuality and your sexual energy to every single aspect of your being, because it is connected to every aspect of your being, but most people are completely unaware of this. For most people, sexuality is something completely unconscious for them. It's just this force, this impulse that controls them, and they don't think about it that much. It's just like, well, all I know is that I want to, get laid. There's an attractive woman. I want to have sex with her, or I want to go on Pornhub and watch other people having sex and masturbate to it, right? That's the extent of most people's connection to their sexuality. It's very disconnected. It's very unconscious, and it's driving them to do all kinds of things. Like, think, what has your sexual desires, your sexual impulses, what has it driven you to do in your life? Probably a lot of sometimes questionable things, right? Now, what if you can take that power of your sexual energy, that desire, that drive, that intense desire, and put it into other things, maybe putting it into your spiritual path, putting it into your physical health, putting it into building your career, building a business, creating income, whatever you want, improving your art, your whatever it is that you do, you can supercharge with sexual energy, because sexual energy is an amplifier. How do you feel when you're just, your normal day-to-day versus how do you feel when you're sexually aroused? There's a very obvious change that happens physically. We notice some pretty obvious changes in our bodies. Things become engorged, things start flowing, your heart rate increases, your breath deepens, but energetically you become very open and expanded and amplified when you're in that state of arousal. It's a very powerful state to be in. The problem is that for men, specifically, the problem is that they can't really hold onto the state. For most men, this is a very uncomfortable state. They have to get this energy out of their bodies. So they're going to either have sex or masturbate to ejaculate it out, right? Well, the key here for men is to learn how to hold that sexual charge, but not release it. You have to live in that state of high sexual charge and desire and arousal, quite frankly. But I'm not saying you need to be like a sexual maniac. That's what happens if you're unbalanced. It's about being able to cultivate your body, your mind, obviously your energy body, in a way that you can hold a greater charge of energy, right? Because and of course for men, a very important part is semen retention, regulating your ejaculation, not just, freely throwing your energy away. It's going to deplete you. So regulating your ejaculation, retaining your semen, you start to build that supply of energy back up. But that's not enough. Most guys stop there, but if you just build all this energy and you're not doing anything to balance it, it's going to drive you crazy after a while, right? So this is why sexual kung fu practices involve opening up the body to be able to hold a higher charge of sexual energy. It's like, what if you have this old rusty, electrical wiring, and you hook it up to a 500-volt battery? It's gonna be very unsafe. There's gonna be some issues. This is the same thing with your body. You start cultivating all this sexual energy, but you don't have the wiring, so to speak, to handle it. You're going to have some short circuits, right? You're going to have some issues. It can amplify your negative emotions. It can amplify your unconscious patterns, your hatreds, your angers. This is why you see a lot of men doing semen retention. They become egotistical, really egotistical. They become very angry, very irritated, just like, just ready to blow up at any second. This happens to a lot of men who practice semen retention. It can also cause premature ejaculation because you're a loaded gun, basically, right? It's a pressure cooker down there just ready to explode. This is because you're not doing the work to transmute the sexual energy. So you have to clear the body. You have to open up all of these, different energy channels in the body, at least some of them, right? You need a safe pathway to bring that energy up in your body instead of letting it build up here. And when you do that, now you can hold so much more desire and arousal. Also being able to ground that energy. You need to be connected to the earth. And that's your grounding cord. So you have this huge container to hold all this energy and keep it stable, because our sexual energy is very fiery. It's very yang. It's pure fire. So when you build it up, there's a tendency to overheat. So you need to stay cool, stay grounded, have a safe container for it, and balance yourself out with yin activities, yin supplements, things like that, right? And so again, cultivating sexual energy is extremely powerful because sexual energy it's the most powerful energy that we have. We've forgotten this as a species. In ancient times, sacred sexuality was a very common practice. Paths of Tantra, Taoist sexual practices, a lot of shamanic, indigenous traditions incorporate sacred sexual practices in their lineage, right? Because it was understood that sex was about more than just, trying to hump someone and get some pleasure, right? Sex is a very sacred act. And sexual energy is something extremely powerful, which is not to be wasted, thrown away, or discarded lightly. And unfortunately, in our day and age, it's been kind of turned around. Sex has become very, very distorted. We learn about sex through porn. We learn about it through watching movies where, for example, porn teaches men that sex is simply about domination. It's about taking pleasures. It's about taking something from someone, right? And just using sex to release your tension, release your stress right into your partner, right? So this is a very distorted pattern that only causes suffering to yourself, and it causes you to want more and more. But because you're depleting yourself with every time, you have this ejaculatory orgasm, you eventually dry up, right? So this is a path of death and aging, and it's very unsustainable. So when you start to practice sexual cultivation, sacred sexuality, you no longer have that, very unconscious, impulsive, animalistic approach to sex where, you're just trying to take something from someone. You're just trying to release this itch in your balls, right? It becomes much more. It becomes about connecting from your heart, connecting from your entire being, your soul, obviously your sexual center, but it's all integrated together, and it amplifies the connection of love. It amplifies the spiritual connection, and you get into a much higher orgasmic state of energy to where you experience a different type of orgasm. Most men only experience these peak ejaculatory orgasms because, again, they rush into sex or masturbation, and they're not in the moment. They're not in their bodies. They're just trying to create all this friction in their genitals until they have an ejaculation. That's the whole focus, is this 5-second ejaculation, which leaves you depleted. Again, it's very unsustainable. It's very fleeting. You always want more, and it always drains you. When you change your dynamic to where it's not about rushing into this peak type of orgasm, you get into a much different experience. When you focus on slowing down, feeling your body, again, you have all these energy channels open, so you have this space to move all this sexual energy. You're consciously connected to your partner. You're connected from your heart. you're emotionally connected, spiritually connected, and physically connected. It's incredibly powerful. So when you spend a long period of time in this state, most men never last more than 5 to 10 minutes during sex. When you have 20, 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours of this tantric exchange of sex, you get into unbelievably powerful full body states, full multi-dimensional states. It's much more than just this little peak orgasm in your genitals. Your whole body's vibrating with orgasmic energy, really. And it's very healing to you. It's very healing to your connection. So you generate this powerful energy. And if you don't ejaculate, you hold on to that. So it's a very healing act. It's a very generative act. You build all this chi together, this sexual energy, and then you can put it into whatever you want to. When you have this incredible tantric 3-hour sex session with your partner, or even 1 hour, and after that, you feel driven, you feel motivated, you feel inspired. You want to write a song, you want to paint a picture, you want to create in the world, you want to create something amazing and beautiful, right? And that is what sexual energy is all about. It's creation. It's about creating beauty. But unfortunately, again, in this world, sex has become a weapon. The porn industry is a weapon to control men. And this distorted pattern is destroying humanity. It's one of the main reasons for, in my opinion, a lot of the conflict, a lot of the wars, a lot of the suffrage, the oppression in this world is the oppression of humans sexually, right? Because again, we're born disconnected from our sexual power, and this creates these deep traumas within ourselves, because on some level, we remember that sacred sexual connection. We remember that sex is something that's powerful. That's why we all, crave it so much. But our expression, we've been conditioned to have such this limited experience of sex that it's not satisfying at all. It's actually destructive. So this is why changing your expression of sex, getting into sexual cultivation, cultivating your sexual energy, cultivating yourself, opening up your body, doing your inner work, clearing, these negative emotions, these traumas that you're holding on to, creating space so that you can have a safe container to develop and refine your sexual energy and then exchange that with someone else. This, in my opinion, is one of the highest paths of transformation, of healing, of energy cultivation. Like, you're just a completely different person once you begin this path. It changes you and it amplifies all the beauty, all the love, all of the creativity in your life. And this is what the world needs right now. We're in this planetary dark night of the soul. All these shadow issues are coming up. Everybody's fears, everybody's, deep issues. There's no hiding anymore. We're at a time where we really have to face the things that we don't want to face. The disharmonies we're carrying within us, the traumas, the fears, the hatreds of our ancestors. We have to clear these things, or we are not going to survive, right? So it really comes down to doing this work, doing your inner work, opening up your body, cultivating your sexual energy. And when we change our connection to sexual energy and remember our inherent incredible power that sexual energy can bring us, this world's going to transform overnight. So that's why I'm so passionate about sharing this work. So I know I just dropped a lot there. And before I answer questions, I want to share some resources with you guys. How do you begin this? Where do you even start with this? On my YouTube channel, I have a Qigong playlist. Qigong is an absolutely incredible practice, which helps you, again, get in touch with your internal energy, open up your channels, remember your connection to yourself and your connection to the universe to step into your true power, your true sovereignty, and cultivate powerful levels of energy, which is kind of the foundation for cultivating sexual energy. So check out my Qigong playlist on YouTube. And also I have a testicle breathing practice on YouTube that it's one of the foundational practices for moving sexual energy through the body. So yeah, there you go. All right, I'm gonna answer some questions now. And also check out my Immortal Energy Arts free training, free energy cultivation training. Just go to immortalenergyarts.com. There's a link in my Instagram bio. And yeah. Okay. Let me drink some water here. How's everybody doing? You guys keeping your vibes high, staying woke, enjoy life. It's like, it's important to have fun. Stop focusing on all this fear and fear porn agenda being pushed through the news, and focus on what inspires you. Focus on what motivates you. What do you want to see in the world? Go create it. Become that, right? This is the time. Okay, what are my thoughts on vasectomy conserving chi? Is chi just in sperm or seminal fluid as well? So this is a common question that men ask me. Vasectomy physically, you're not losing sperm when you ejaculate, but there's almost the exact same loss of energy that occurs. It's like you're still losing Jing and Qi, because you'll notice. Well, maybe you won't notice, but I've talked to many men who've had vasectomies, and they have the exact same fatigue and exhaustion after an ejaculation, even though they're not physically losing sperm. So it shows you that it's more than just a physical release. It's an energetic release during an ejaculatory peak orgasm, right? And so it's the same hormonal changes, the same release of prolactin, the same suppression of testosterone. So men who've had a vasectomy, it still benefits them to refrain from, peak orgasms as a man who hasn't had one. How do I bounce back from RE? Bounce back from what? RE? What's that you're bouncing back from? Okay, Matthew. I struggle with porn addiction. How long does it take to clean one's energy from dark porn-based entities? Do you have some exercises for porn addicts? It's a tough one. Porn addiction. I spent 11 years of my life looking at porn almost every day, and it wasn't an overnight transition for me. But for me, it was really when I began my sexual kung fu training and got really serious about it. I was doing qigong, I was doing meditation, I was cultivating my sexual energy, working with new dynamics of expressing arousal and sexual energy other than ejaculation. And so all of this work really deepened my sensitivity. And when I started doing this, and I'd watch porn and be like, oh, I feel really like this just doesn't actually feel that good. Like there's something really weird about this dynamic. And it would be with me for the rest of the day. It would just feel like this weird thing, like in my chest. Like when I looked at porn, it's just like ingrained, you're glued to those images and all the weird entities that are attached to them. Right. So for me, it was just a natural part of my practice. Well, my development, because my practice made me very sensitive to realizing this. And so as I was practicing sexual kung fu, working with sexual energy and rewiring my experience of sex and orgasm, which is the important part. It's like you can do, qigong and like no fap kind of stuff, but not touch any of the sexual work. And if it's important to do the work with the sexual energy directly, because that's what really rewires your experience of it. When you've had a very connected, very evolved experience of sex where you're circulating energy through your body, building the arousal and circulating upward instead of releasing it. And instead of being focused on the computer screen, which just draws out your energy, like it's so much more nourishing and fulfilling. And after you've experienced that, you'll be much less likely to go back to looking at porn. But on a more practical level, keep doing your energy cultivation, find new things to, express yourself with, to express your sexual energy with, create art, study, be productive, read books. You have to keep yourself busy. Otherwise, boredom, you'll get on Pornhub and everyone else. So continue to work with your sexual energy, new ways of experiencing and deepening your connection with sexual energy, and working with your body, right? And again, create an action plan, something that you do. If you're in that habit of this certain time every day, I'm on Pornhub looking at porn, find something else to do with that energy. So maybe at that time, I'm going to go for a run, go for a hike, go to the gym, crush a workout, do some qigong, whatever. You have to replace that with something else. And it can be a bit of a process, right? And sometimes you may fall back to looking at porn, but overall, as long as you're on the path, you have that intention of releasing it, it obviously takes some willpower. So wishing you the best with that. How's No Nut November going for you? It's going great. It's really just like any other time of the year for me, but yeah. Okay, how do you bounce back from a relapse? Watch my video on ejaculation recovery. Don't beat yourself up about it. It's just part of the path. You went 11 days. That's great. Don't feel like you're gonna, have to go the rest of your life. It's just, it's a matter of keeping yourself balanced, focusing, having the intention of like, I want to recycle this energy. I want to make the most of it, instead of just focusing on like, I can't ever ejaculate. And if I do, I have to beat myself up. I'm a loser. Like, don't get in that mindset. Don't be too obsessive over it. Right. So don't worry about it. A few days, you'll have the energy back. So check out my video on ejaculation recovery. Okay. brown shugs. Okay, have you experienced a lack of ambition or motivation after getting more in touch with your spirituality? Maybe after Kundalini awakening, I'm stuck in the being rather than doing. Yeah, I can totally relate to that. Some of this in part can be kind of a spiritual bypass where it's like, oh, well, I'm going to go back to divinity. I'm going to like ascend into higher realms and dimensions, and none of this, what's here doesn't matter. And that's kind of a trap. I spent many years kind of in that mindset, and I was, broke, had no money, was just stuck in my physical life because I was so focused on like, well, in the higher dimensional realms, I'm going to have everything, right? You're very disconnected from what's happening here and now. Remember that you came into this physical realm for a reason, right? Your inherent nature is to be, an infinite being with absolute abundance in all area. And you remember that, right? As you're developing your spiritual path. The challenge is to really be here down in the mud, so to speak, in the physical third dimensional realm, right? But just remember, you came here for a reason. You came here for a purpose. It's like, why would you come here just to like escape and go back to the heaven realms, right? You came down here for a reason. You left behind that absolute freedom of being a infinite being to have the limitation of being in a physical realm. In my opinion, being on Earth in a physical body, it's kind of like playing a video game. You have certain limitations or certain rules. You're born with whatever situation you have, and it's like it's up to you what you do with it, right? So see it as how can I share my mission with the world? What's my mission on this planet? Why did I come here? I don't think you came here just to hide in your room meditating for 12 hours a day and not contributing to the world, right? So it's like, how do you balance your worldly destiny and your spiritual destiny? So once you start to see, how can I share and contribute to this world? What are my gifts? What are my strengths? How can I help this planet evolve, grow, and transform? When you start focusing on that, then you start to balance the spirituality and the worldly physical destiny. And that's when you've really got it, right? Okay, advice on porn-related erectile dysfunction. Struggle to stay hard with the real thing now. So yeah, it's a matter of your brain's been so overstimulated. It's been wired to require a very high amount of overstimulation just to be aroused. So it's going to be a process of releasing that, right? I highly recommend you do a dopamine detox, meaning that you completely, if you can, spend time away from electronic devices, basically at least a day, several days if you can like go on a little retreat. But overall, avoid social media, avoid, these instant gratification, dopamine releasing activities, exercise, physical exercise, workout, get your blood flowing, do some cardio, things like that, help get your hormones back in balance, do some Qigong, do some meditation, eat healthy. Also supplementing choline, which is an important nutrient for the parasympathetic nervous system. You burn up a lot of your serotonin, your dopamine when you're watching porn all the time, right? So balancing out those levels. So taking like a choline supplement. I take alpha GPC. What's the other one? Mucuna, purines. Working hard, studying, reading books, going to the gym. These more sustainable things that aren't just that instant gratification like video games and porn. How can you experience increased orgasmic pleasure when you are single? You work with your own energy, your self-cultivation. So you don't have to have a partner to practice this stuff. In fact, it's almost the best to do it when you don't have a partner, because it's a lot easier to learn these new expressions of sexuality and sexual energy when you aren't in a relationship, because you don't have all the maybe the performance expectations and things like that. And then when you do enter a relationship, you've already mastered the practices on your own, so you can integrate them with a partner. Choline, CHOLINE. Choline bitartrate is one form. I take alpha GPC. It's supposed to be a bit superior. All right. Let's see what other questions we have here. What's my opinion to stop eating wheat and gluten? I think it's a good idea. Definitely GMO wheat, which, pretty much anything you eat here in the US is going to be, unless it says, organic, non-GMO. So the problem isn't actually so much gluten. The problem is all the pesticides, all the chemicals that they spray the wheat with, and the fact that it's so genetically modified that it really binds to the wheat, glyphosate in particular. It causes serious inflammation in the body, causes hormonal imbalance. It's a poison, it's a toxin. And like, what do most Americans eat? They eat breads, they eat cereals, all these things that are loaded with poisons. Our food system, our food sources are mostly poisoned, systematically. It is what it is, but you can avoid this. So yeah, I definitely recommend avoiding gluten, avoiding wheat products that aren't organic, non-GMO. Because I've been doing this for years, and like a few weeks ago, I was in Arizona. I'd just flown into Arizona, into Phoenix, and my partner and I were really hungry. We went to this Mexican place, really, really good taco place in Phoenix, and I got a burrito, not thinking about the fact that most wraps have gluten in them, and I ate it, and it wrecked my stomach for like 2 days. So yeah, I recommend eliminating that from your diet. Can I send you a good intention to the universe on me quitting porn? Always send a good intention in your name. Okay. Let's send Matthew some good intentions. May Matthew release his porn addiction. May the demons be dispelled. So there you go, brother. If everyone in the world does No Nut November, would that mean that there would be no kids born in August? It's true. How often should we ejaculate? I heard once a month is ideal, more in winter, and virtually zero in winter. I think you meant more in summer. So ejaculation frequency, if you want to ejaculate, I think in general, twice per month in the warmer months, and minimum, or maximum, whatever, once a month in the winter months is a good cycle to go by. You can go longer, you can go shorter if you really want, but overall, that's, I think, a good guideline to go with. Oops. Okay, there we go. How many days do you recommend for the first lesson, the breathing? So for my free course, you're going to want to practice it consistently. Practice it for at least a few weeks. You want to really, really get that deep belly breathing ingrained. Day 45, I had my first wet dream. Should I be worried? Does it count as a relapse? Don't worry about it too much. It's like it happens here and there. Yeah, don't obsess about it. Don't obsess over it. If you have 45 days, you're fine. How often do I sharpen my knife? Sharpening the sword practices, referring to, it's like every other part of your body you work out. You got to work out your genitals too if you want to keep them healthy. So that's what sharpening the sword refers to, kind of a Taoist thing. Mostly one day on, one day off. I'm doing certain exercises for my penis blood circulation development and endurance and things like that. So yeah. How does meditation affect NoFap and semen retention benefits? I think meditation is essential if you're doing this, because when you build up all this jing, you build up all this raw energy. The tendency is that it wants to expand. It wants to, it tends to get up into your head, sexual thoughts and like sexual feelings. So Meditation helps you calm, settle the gene, as they say, settle it down so it's not so volatile and fiery and horny, right? So meditation helps you really learn to control your mind, keep yourself balanced, keep yourself calm, and in the flow. So definitely recommend. I mean, I think everyone should be practicing meditation, but definitely if you're doing semen retention. How long does it take to control ejaculation, and maximum how long can we control while having sex? It's going to be different from everyone. I can't say every man can learn ejaculation control in 10 days. It's going to be different for everyone. It depends how how committed you are to learning it, how much you practice, how stressed you are, how good your focus is, what's your background like. So there's really no number I can give out. Some guys will get it right away. Some guys it might take weeks, months, whatever. So just don't worry too much about how long it is. Just focus on the practice. Just do it and see what happens. How long can we? So basically, how long? The other question is, how long can you last maximum while having sex? When you really develop the skill, as long as you want. Of course, part of it is being aware of when your arousal is getting too high, and obviously there's things you can do to minimize the arousal, but sometimes it just gets too high and you have to slow down for a little bit, take a bit of a breather, do the power lock to draw the energy out, and then you can keep going, right? So when you really develop ejaculation control, you can go for hours if you want. Make G-spot? Do you mean to say male G-spot? So you're asking about how long you should do so this question is about my free ejaculation control course. You asked how long should I do the first practice before moving on to the next one. It really doesn't matter. You may want to work with it for like a few days and then start implementing the other one, but you can really do them both as well. So whatever works for you. With your kung fu, can you shoot semen hard enough to break a rock? That's not really the focus of sexual kung fu. It's not about how hard you can ejaculate. It's more about conserving the energy of the semen and not just wasting it, right? So if someone can break a rock with their ejaculation, I would find that very impressive. Male G-spot helps circulate energy, good for guys to relax through pleasure in the back door, better understanding what it feels like to be entered. So talking about prostate stimulation, this is extremely beneficial for men. This may make some guys feel homophobic, but it's just another part of your body and one that holds immense pleasure. I've been actually learning how to have prostate orgasms simply from prostate stimulation, not even necessarily like massage type stimulation, but by simply feeling it. You can have like mind-blowing, some of the most intense experiences in my life I've ever had were prostate orgasms. I'm going to make a video on this soon, but it takes a while to rewire yourself to experience this type because it's a very, very different experience. But yeah, for men, working with the prostate is very important. Massaging it, keeping it healthy. 50% of men have prostate issues. So especially because if you're practicing semen retention, all this prostate fluid can build up. So massaging the prostate helps you to keep it healthy, keep it balanced, and keep things flowing. How do I find a girl with a spiritual view of life in today's materialistic world? I think that's a very good question. Where would a conscious type of woman hang out? Where would she spend her time? Probably not at the bar, probably not on, shallow circles of the internet, whatever, however you're meeting people. Set the intention of who do you want to be with? What type of person do you want to be with? Visualize that. What kind of qualities do you want them to have? Do you embody those qualities yourself? You know what I mean? Just kind of put it out there into the universe. But yeah, where do conscious people spend their time? That's where, you'll probably find a conscious-minded woman. Masturbation is far from bad. I am a sex education expert and my husband is a doctor. We both know that masturbation has many health benefits and is good for mental health. I completely agree. I've never said that masturbation is harmful. It's excessive ejaculation that can be harmful for men. Men can have non-ejaculatory orgasms. Every time a man ejaculates, there's a release of prolactin into the blood, which causes him to be weak. That's why men feel so, fatigued and unmotivated after ejaculating. So I'm not saying men should never masturbate. That's never what I've said. I'm saying that it's excessive ejaculating that is training men to, they're porn addicts. They're trained to have these short-lived orgasms that they rush into for 5 minutes instead of actually learning how to cultivate their sexual energy, use it to nourish themselves. They're just releasing it. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying don't masturbate. I'm not one of those guys. I'm saying don't waste your energy. Learn to masturbate the Jedi way, right? What's the best way to massage the prostate? I've noticed that when practicing semen retention, the energy is stuck and it can affect my inflow of currency, etc. Practice testicle breathing. I have a guided practice on my YouTube that keeps the energy flowing. But as far as working with the prostate, the most simple way is to have a tennis ball and you sit on it. So you press it, so it presses up into the soft area of the perineum, the pelvic floor. You sit on it and that'll acupress your prostate. Basically, you can kind of move around a little bit. Do that every day. That's very important. You can directly massage the prostate if you want as well, but there's different ways. You can massage it externally from just massaging the perineum area. The $1 million point. It's like it's talking about masturbating the Jedi way. There's that meme where it's a picture of Jesus. He's like, "Are you masturbating again?" He's like, "If so, make sure you bring the energy up to charge up all your chakras or something." It's really funny because supposedly Jesus studied sacred sexuality. He studied in Egypt. He went to India. He went to Tibet. And he had his sacred consort Mary Magdalene. So yeah, kind of interesting. Jesus was a sexual kung fu master. I know it. The $1 million point is the huyen, it's the perineum. It gets the name because it's a common technique that a lot of people teach where you press the perineum at the point of ejaculation to physically block the valve that shoots out semen. So you kind of have a dry orgasm. It's a very crude technique. It's not great. You still lose energy, but that's the $1 million technique. Supposedly, like some emperor in China paid a Taoist monk 1 million gold pieces to teach him this technique. I don't recommend making it your primary method. Again, it's very crude. You still lose energy. You still lose probably 50% of the energy that you would lose in ejaculation because you still have that peak orgasm. And more often than not, men have retrograde ejaculation from it, which means the semen is just redirected into your bladder. So it's exactly the same. It can be like kind of a last resort method if everything else fails. But again, I don't recommend you rely on it. If you use it really, really often, it can cause some stagnance in the genitals. What exercises should you be doing other than sharpening the sword? Meditation, open the microcosmic orbit, do Qigong, activate your energy body. That's how you really learn to become multi-orgasmic as a man, experience a heightened state of sexual experience. How do you relax with someone the first time you have sex? Yeah, it can be a bit more, first time you're with someone, it's new, it can be very exciting and it can be very stimulating, right? So don't, obsess over it too much, but breathe, focus on your breathing, focus on your body, focused on relaxing your body. Keep your awareness on your body. There's a tendency during sex to focus completely on what's happening out here. You're looking at your partner, looking at their body, looking at what's happening. It's very stimulating. But the sight, you're focusing so much on what you're seeing out here, it pulls your energy out when you ejaculate, right? So focus on your breathing, focus on relaxing, focus on your whole body. Like, what are you feeling in your body when you're having sex? And, of course, using the sexual kung fu techniques to draw the energy upwards, that will help you last longer. Okay. Is hands-free orgasm harmful for the human mind? Tell me its effect. I mean, there's many different types of hand-free orgasms. The only types I've experienced were prostate orgasms, which was a hands-free orgasm, just focusing on that area, stimulating the energy, and it slowly builds up to a mind-blowing, multidimensional orgasm. I don't think it's harmful for the human mind. That's about all I can say about it. To me, it was like a really life-changing experience. It was a very spiritual experience, actually. It was seriously being on like a psychedelic drug, except it was like this orgasm, and it's hard to explain, but it was incredibly powerful. And I felt really like glowing and energized from that after a while. So do you need to open the microcosmic orbit to have a non-ejaculatory orgasm? No, but there's different types of non-ejaculatory orgasms. There's the solely genital non-ejaculatory orgasm, which is what most people teach. So you like get to the point where you are pretty much starting to ejaculate, the orgasm starting, and you tighten your pelvic floor. That's what most people teach. And you may have like a dry orgasm. I don't like that method very much. It works, but it's not that enjoyable because you're just focused on like squeezing and tensing, and it blocks your experience of like having really intense orgasms. So you just have like a weak genital orgasm. But if you want to have full body, like powerful orgasms, like energetic orgasms, it's very beneficial to work with the microcosmic orbit. You don't have to necessarily. Some people get there without it, but it definitely helps. Some women don't like when I don't ejaculate, like they want to take my power. Well, it's, as we're all conditioned to experience certain experiences during sex, obviously one of them is ejaculation. Typically, because most of us learn about sex through porn, it's like the male ejaculation is like the end all and be all of the sexual acts. Like, oh, that's it. That's the climax. Everything is, set in place so that this can happen, right? That tends to be both men and women's kind of experience of sex. And so a lot of women have this, again, this feeling of kind of incompletion if the man doesn't ejaculate, because that ejaculation is a very tangible sort of experience that they've satisfied their men. And they often feel that the man needs to have that to be satisfied, right? And so I think on one level, that's it. So obviously communication is very important here. For some women, it may be that they subconsciously just really want that gene, that energy. So again, in the context of a relationship, communication is important. Communicate to your partner what your practice is and why you're doing it. I think it's important to not make it about you. If you're like, oh, I'm not doing this because when I ejaculate into you, I feel drained, that will kind of cause a bit of a separation between like, oh, well, you're just trying to, I'm sorry that I'm just draining your energy. They could be a bit offended. So put it in the context of the relationship. Say, hey, I would like to focus on having non-ejaculatory sex because I have so much more energy. I feel so much more alive and passionate, and I feel so much more connected to you. I have so much more energy to put into our relationship, and we both benefit from it. So, you have to be able to communicate it and put it into the context of the relationship so that they understand. Can you further explain the lone man pie technique, please? So the Dantian building practice, what further do you need me to explain? It's a pretty simple practice. You breathe from the chi hai down into the hu yin. You squeeze the pelvic floor muscles a few times as you focus on the Dantian. You exhale from hu yin to chi hai. That's the whole technique. What clarification would you like? Are you familiar with the theory that we must use our sexual energy to create a second body unless a man be born again? Yeah, there's a lot of different theories like this. Part of Taoist internal alchemy is creating the immortal elixir, the immortal embryo. So you kind of use your sexual energy and various essences of the body to create this energy body that becomes immortal after death. There's a lot of different theories on this. Yeah. Okay, so with the technique, when you hold the breath, are we supposed to feel the pelvic floor squeeze, create a dantian within the body? Well, the whole practice is eventually creating the dantian. The pelvic floor squeezing just helps kind of concentrate the jing and the qi in the lower dantian. The process of building the dantian First, you have to form the yin field, this magnetic field, right? You have to have a container before you fill it. So that's kind of the bucket that you fill with water is the yin field of the lower dantian. That requires stillness, being able to settle your mind down into the lower dantian, really anchor it down there. I get a lot more deeper to this in my Immortal Energy Arts course, but as far as the technique, again, the whole technique is building the dantian. When you're squeezing the pelvic floor, you're just focusing on the center space of the dantian. Does the feeling of guilt affect one's sexual practice? Definitely. Guilt is a very heavy emotion. It lowers your vibration. You know, guilt, fear, shame. These things will all lower your vibration. They can cause a contraction in your being, and will definitely affect your sexual practice, your life in general. Best foods for sexual longevity: organic foods that are close to nature, that aren't laced with a lot of toxicity. In general, gene building foods: goji berries, maca root. I just said maca. Shilajit is really great. Bee pollen, royal jelly. Foods with lots of minerals in them. If you do animal products, getting like high quality, grass-fed meats and things like that will build your gene. Eggs. Black sesame seeds, those are amazing too. Okay, what are my thoughts on occasional marijuana usage and sexual semen retention practice? Yeah, so marijuana, on occasion, it's not a big deal. It can have some benefits in that, you get that shift of frame of mind, you see things differently, you kind of get that, shift of perspective. That's why we like taking substances. They shift our perspective. But if you're taking it too often, that's when it's like causing issues. Like all psychoactive substances, they deplete some of your gene, your physical essence, to feed that high, right? But if it's like every now and then, it's not going to be as big of a deal. So in general, if you feel good, if you feel balanced, if everything's going well in your life, then it's probably fine. Do you have a teacher for this material? I've studied with many different teachers, and I teach this myself. Will we ever be in a world not run by dark forces? I think that the time of the dark forces is at its end. That's why things are so desperate right now. That's why so much is rolling out on the planet. There's so much, it's like the last resort of this fear-based agenda to try to control us. A lot of people are falling for it, but I think that we're seeing the collapse of the, the control of the dark side for hundreds, thousands of years. I think that we're at the time where the needle is shifting. But again, it's up to each of us to embody harmony, balance, beauty, love in this world to create a new reality for ourselves. What is the feeling you get when you see a woman and you have a strong energetic force to have sex? That's called attraction. It's called magnetic attraction. That's called here's the negative end of the magnet, here's the positive end, they meet, they're drawn together. It's, you're experiencing sexual attraction. There's nothing too like mystical about it. It's attraction. Maybe it may be coming from different levels. It can be a spiritual attraction. It can, if it's to have sex, then it's probably, there's some physical layers to it, but there's many levels to it. What are the ways we can help women have multiple orgasms? For women, it's really about waking up obviously waking up their womb space, waking up the yoni, especially the G spot and the A spot. um, Different women will be open to it at different levels. You can't necessarily like force a woman into it because you learn some technique, like stimulation techniques can help. But overall, a woman needs to feel very safe. She needs to feel very supported and trust you very deeply to be able to like really let go and get into deep levels of orgasm. And you can work together on this, learning yoni massage, learning how to activate and awaken the G spot, the A spot, and things like this can really help them to awaken their goddess sexual nature. I've been able to gain the heat from the meditation, but I need to know when I have a fully stable Dantian so I can let the mind sink into the Dantian. Well, the process of building the Dantian is a long one. Like, if you can feel it, if it's very, very tangible, then and especially if you can connect it to your hands during movements, like connecting it to the Lao Gong, if you can feel it activate when you're doing energy practices, then you have a Dantian. And there's different levels of, developing it. There's different energies you bring into it, cultivating the elixir. But in general, when you feel it very tangibly and you're able to work with it, you have a Dantian. And letting the mind sink into the Dantian, that's kind of a prerequisite really to building the Dantian. Damo Mitchell teaches you to use the breath, observing the breath, following the breath to sink into the space of the lower Dantian. And that's actually an important foundation to really building the Dantian. The dark, all right, the internet sex speak, the dark astral beast that's behind the porn industry. Yeah, so there's a massive, huge, powerful force on this planet that has many people enslaved. The internet sex beast, right? The astral sex beast. All porn, human trafficking, all this dark, distorted sexual energy is feeding a very powerful entity on this planet. Think about this: how much energy there is in a man's semen, right? We're going to talk about men for this, right? Because the power of the semen, a single sperm can become a human being. You have 250 million of these in a single ejaculation. That's a massive life force potential. So when you think about the fact that right now around the world, there's tens of thousands of men jerking off to porn, releasing all this semen, all this gene, where's this energy going? What are you focused on? You're focused on this porn image, but what's behind that image, right? There's these dark entities that connect to these things and they're feeding off of your gene. This is also one of the reasons it's so addictive, is because you're sexually gluing yourself to these nasty astral entities, and they're like feeding you a bit in return just to get you to come back. So, it's a major force on the planet. I kind of picture, the movie The Matrix, that scene where Neo wakes up and he's in this feeding tube and he looks around, there's thousands and thousands of humans in these tubes. They're being fed off of by machines. You can imagine that, all these men hooked up to their computers from their genitals, and all this, gene is being pulled out of them, feeding this massive astral beast. So that's, the internet sex beast. It is what it is. It's there because it has the food source that many people are willing to give. And it's a very powerful force. That's why you feel so like weird in your mind, in your body, when you go on a porn site. It's just this weird energy. Like, I accidentally, there was like a porn ad or something randomly came on. This was like, I think it was last year or something. And like, just seeing the image, like the porn images, it was like, it wasn't just that. It was like there was something else behind me. It was like attaching to me, and it felt really nasty and took me a few days to clear it. So it's, something dark and powerful. So that's why I don't recommend watching porn. I have not heard of Period 9. Yes, my Dantian is pretty online. Okay, the difference between Kegels and reverse Kegels. A Kegel is a clenching. So it's like if you have to urinate and you're holding it back, you're using those muscles. You squeeze those, that's a Kegel. Reverse Kegel is the opposite. It's kind of a pushing out and stretching of those muscles. So if you're urinating and you're trying to push it out, that's a reverse Kegel. So it's a pushing outward. You want to do those in conjunction. Otherwise, if you just do Kegels, you'll get hypertension in your pelvic floor, and it can make premature ejaculation worse. Okay, how do you clear the energy when you're wired into the internet? When you're wired into astral sex entities through porn addiction, doing sexual kung fu, doing energetic practices. You're working with the orbit. You're establishing a new flow of your energy. Most people's energy is programmed to scatter into the world around them. They're always on their phone. They're always out here. They're looking at porn, masturbating into images. They're sending their energy out constantly. When you do energetic practices, when you do qigong, you do these internal energy practices, you are reprogramming your energy body to move in a different way. The microcosmic orbit teaches you to recycle your energy, creates this container. You can work with the other 8 extraordinary meridians to create this this foundational matrix of your energy body, right? All these counter rotating fields that protect you from EMFs actually, and a lot of this nasty stuff. So clearing these connections to weird thought forms and entities, it's really about establishing strong energetic boundaries. It really comes down to that. And again, changing your experience of how you experience sexual energy, really. Parallel reality. Well, we're all creating our reality from, quantum physics shows us that all particles, all what we have the illusion is fixed matter. The universe is 99.9% empty space. Everything is an illusion, really. And matter, the smallest particles we're aware of, like light particles and things like that, are actually moving in between wave form and particle form. So basically they're moving from form into formless consistently. It's like a video game, right? And it's the observation of things that fixes them into particles. They did an experiment where when they weren't watching these light beams, they changed into waveforms and they acted differently. But when these light photons, whatever, were being observed, they were fixed particles, right? So we are creating our reality by observing, by focusing, by the beliefs we have, right? And that's why it's very important. What are you focusing on? What are you feeling? What emotions are you holding? This is programming the world around you, because we're living in a virtual reality, basically, and it's our thoughts, our emotions, our beliefs that are structuring everything. Apparently, there's a limit on my lives on Instagram, so I've got 1 minute and 50 seconds left on my Instagram feed. Does your partner have to be into this to connect with them? Not necessarily. It helps if they are, but obviously you need to at least kind of be on the same page and that they understand what you're doing. But you can be the only one doing conscious sexual practice, and the relationship can still benefit. Do you think semen is essential to hair growth? Well, it's not like you're growing your hair with semen. The thing is that when the body starts to lose resources, when you're living in a state of depletion, especially if you're excessively ejaculating, you're depleting all your gene, the body has less minerals and resources to create your hair, less resources to create the bodily fluid, so it starts to pull things from your hair to feed your semen and other things, right? So semen retention can help with balding and hair growth. All right, I'm going to answer just a few more questions. Instagram, I've got 40 seconds left. I didn't know there was a time limit on Instagram lives. Do you experience flatline after doing semen retention for so many years? No, not really. I made a video about this on what flatlines are, how you can avoid them, and things like that. I mean, obviously I have my ups and downs in life, but in general, I feel pretty good. All right, Instagram, I'm jumping off. Take it easy. Okay, I'm answer a couple more questions on YouTube, guys, then I'll jump off here. If God wanted us to be celibate, why did he create men and male and female bodies that were wired to connect with each other? You know, sex is very sacred. You know, sex is what creates life. It's about having a harmonious connection with that gives you the greatest power and gives you that creative ability yourself. How to deal with demons attacking me sexually while I'm sleeping. I mean, this may or may not actually be demons. It may just be, you know, your desires that are expressing themselves in your sleep, right? But I will say establishing clear energetic boundaries, working the microcosmic orbit, working with your energy field. I made a video on how to clear your energy field, work with that. Using the hands to make a dantian. I teach this in Immortal Energy Arts. Maybe I'll share a technique, but it's, you know, you have to do a lot of work before you get to the point of using the hands to build the dantian. And so, you know, I try to keep it a little more simple on my YouTube. Oh, so how do you tell if you've had, okay, how do you tell the difference between retrograde ejaculation and holding your seed? You'll know that you've had a retrograde ejaculation because you go to urinate afterwards and it's like really, really bubbly. There's a bunch of like floaty things in it. That's your semen that has gone into your bladder. If you had a non-ejaculatory orgasm, then there's nothing in your urine, right? Okay, so with the low man pie technique, I think it's a great kind of starting technique to feel the dantian in the space, but I find stillness ultimately to be a bit more effective in building the lower dantian. You can also use like a little bit of reverse breathing as well. All right, this might be the last question I answer. Is semen retention for the most part beneficial, or are there any setbacks or concerns one should look out for while practicing semen retention? So yeah, semen retention isn't just like, you know, a fix-all, you know, take this pill and everything's fixed sort of situation. Semen retention is not for everyone. Let's get into the energetics of what's happening here. I talk about this a lot, but when you practice semen retention, what are you doing? You're stopping a leak. You're building energy. Pretty soon that energy is going to really, really build up. What if there's no space for that energy to go into? What happens? Congestion. What does this look like? It looks like aggravated emotions. It looks like irritability. It looks like blue balls. It looks like premature ejaculation, turning into a maniac. Also, sexual energy is an amplifier. It amplifies things. It glues you to things, right? So if you have all these, if you're like a really imbalanced, angry, stressed out person and you start retaining your semen, you might just be amplifying those patterns. That's why I only recommend doing semen retention if you're doing the work to balance yourself. You're meditating, you're opening up energy channels, you're circulating your sexual energy through your body. This will keep you balanced and it feels good. It feels natural to do semen retention in this way. If you're forcing yourself to do semen retention and you're angry and irritable, you know, you're going to have some problems, right? So that's basically the dynamic of semen retention and some of the potential negative side effects is stagnance, energy buildup that's feeding unconscious patterns. How do you time it right so you don't have a retrograde ejaculation? Well, you're probably working with a technique where you're going over the edge and having a peak genital orgasm. I don't really work with this technique, as I mentioned, because the orgasms are very weak and they're genital orgasms, that same kind of fluctuation in your dopamine levels. I choose to experience more full body energetic states of orgasm, which feels very, very different than an ejaculatory orgasm. So that's the main thing I'm teaching how to experience. I'm not in the low man pi system anymore. I got into it because he obviously knows his stuff with Taoist Nadon, internal alchemy, and that's really the main thing I wanted to learn. But he also does like magic stuff, which I wasn't really vibing with. Nothing against him. He's a very clearly an experienced master, but I just wasn't really feeling that, so I left the school. Do you ever masturbate to build energy? I used to do it a lot. I prefer, cultivation with my partner now. But when I was learning sexual kung fu, that was one thing. It's like, wow, I just, build up the aroused energy that I move through my body. Then it's like, I'm charged up. I don't recommend making that your sole practice. You want to have other methods of building your energy. But yeah. I'm going live pretty much the same time. I go live around it's around 5 p.m. LA time, 6 p.m. Mountain time where I am here every Thursday. That's when my lives are. All right, guys, I'm gonna jump off. Thanks everyone for joining. Enjoy the rest of your week, your weekend, and I will see you guys. See you guys back here next week. Take it easy.